war, I can't begin to describe to you what it does to the average human being to be trained to kill another and then to actually kill somebody. So I'm fortunate. I've been shot, been stabbed, all that kind of stuff, but I've never had to kill anybody. I have seen it, I've been, but I've never had to kill somebody. And killing another human being, you kill a part of yourself when you do that. And that's why what they, on the street, what we call stone killers, what that means is somebody's heart has been turned to stone. They don't see another human being. They just do whatever they do. We don't need to go any further.
It's 4 p.m. Stand up. It's count time. It's time for every man and woman to stand up and be counted. I'm Brother L.D. Ozoba, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Count Time. We decided to come on up here to New Orleans and hang out with some great folks up here. We're at the Ashe building in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we have here a local writer, author, playwright, community activist, world traveler. I mean, so whatever you can think of, we got Brother Kalamu. Salaam. Welcome to Count Time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate the fact that you journeyed this far to see us, and hope we don't disappoint you in some of the comments we make. But then if we do, so be it.
So be it. Look, we want you to give us your last will and testimony today.
Oh, no.
We want to have us some fun.
I got a couple of projects I got to do before the last will and testament.
We want you to finish those projects, but while we're talking, let's get a few little things out today while we have some serious discussion about here. Now, you grew up where?
Grew up here in New Orleans, in the lower Ninth Ward, Lower Industrial Canal.
Real lower Ninth Ward.
Real lower Ninth Ward,
right.
yes sir.
You don't get no lower than that.
First on Lazardi Street, then on St. Maurice, then on Tennessee, before I left the Ninth Ward. And I was living over in Algiers, section of New Orleans, and my second wife died February. She made her transition February 20th, 2020, and shortly thereafter I moved here to Ashe, and this is where I've been ever since, in that Ashe Cultural Center.
Apartment complex.
It's an apartment complex, and it's in Central City, not too far from the train station, but I don't get around much anymore. Last year, I was hospitalized about 2.5 months.
Ooh,
and then come to find out, I had a cancerous mass on my kidney. And then there was a procedure that was done where they stick steel rods into your back, into the mass to see if they can dissipate it with extreme heat or extreme cold. That was successful, but that has left me moving on turtle time.
Okay, it slowed you down a little.
Very much so, and I don't.
Thankful just to be here, though. Enjoy
Well, I'm a writer. That's my main profession as a writer, and I can write. Well, as you see, I've got 2 computer screens.
We see that.
Yeah, I've got books and everything. In fact, this is the 3rd library I've had. Second library was donated to Amistad Research Center. That was over 5,000 volumes. And the first library was lost in the various floods. We had Betsy and Katrina and what have you. So I just,
You what do you call that? That word for what?
Voracious?
Voracious reader. Huh? How
well,
you get into reading? Coming the lower ninth ward, there was a lot of reading going on, a lot of education going on.
Lower Ninth Ward was a section of New Orleans where we did for self. Because we were separated from the city by the industrial canal. For a long time, there were only two bridges across the industrial canal. And the third one, William Seabrook Bridge, which was constructed in during the 50s and was opened, I guess, the early 60s. That's the one that most people know because that's the main in and out of the Lower Ninth Ward. But you know, we just grew up back there. And the Mississippi River is on one end of the Lower Ninth Ward, and on the other end is the swamps, the marshlands.
So did it flood a lot coming up in that area?
Not a lot, but we had floods. And when Betsy hit, they broke the levee to save allegedly to save Canal Street and what have you. And it wasn't even necessary, but it flooded out.
Same thing. The same thing happened for Katrina.
Well, Katrina was a bit worse. Katrina, it was not. They didn't break the levee. There was actually a barge that broke the levee in the Lower Ninth Ward. And when I say a barge, most people are mistaken. A barge is basically a navigational a vessel that does not have a motor on it. It doesn't have, rudder and what have you. And it's pushed along or dragged along by tugs. And most people think of a barge as being, something that's small. But this barge was larger than a football field. And it broke through. It was originally moored in the was called Mississippi Gold, Mississippi River Gulf Outlet. Mr. Gold is what it's called. And it was built as a direct conduit between the Gulf of Mexico and New Orleans and the Industrial Canal. And long story short, it didn't do what they thought it was going to do in terms of the commercial aspect. But that barge did break through and broke through the levee and what have you. The levee down there has been reinforced since then, but it caused quite a bit of damage.
Affected a lot of people. A lot of people had to get out of town because of.
There was no town left to be
here.
That's right. Because it was all water at that point when the barge broke through. Many places were actually underwater if they survived. Mm-hmm. And I had grown up down there, so I mean, you go across there was a canal, small walkway. It wasn't really a bridge. It was large planks across the canal. You walk across that, and then you come to the train tracks, and then the levee, and then you into the swamp.
That sounds like an obstacle course.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, when you're coming up, you don't think nothing of it.
That's how you got around.
That was life. That's that was just part of the day-to-day navigation. You just walked, and you walk back there. We played back there. You got the cottonmouth snakes. You got the golf. You ever saw golffish?
Oh yeah, I come out the water out on the bayou side and the Mississippi River myself.
Okay.
I'm down south.
Well, a lot of people are amazed when they first see a gull with their big old teeth in it.
With your teeth in the mouth like that. You look like a human being,
And if the golffish catch you, boy, you done for.
There's some choppers on them, huh?
Yes, indeed, you done for. And
did y'all swim in the river back then?
Well, we were not too far from the canals and what have you, Tupelo Street Canal and what have you. But we didn't swim there because we'd go out to the lake to swim.
What lake was that?
Lake Pontchartrain.
Oh, okay, so you're at the Lake Pontchartrain. All right. I'm thinking about it.
We go out to Lake Pontchartrain and swim down there on the far end, well, the east end of the lake, near
Is that before
Camp
Lincoln
Leroy Johnson.
That was before Lincoln Beach?
Oh, Lincoln Beach was much farther out.
Yeah.
That was much farther out, yeah. Eventually, when the Lincoln Beach opened, I can remember going out there.
Where was Lincoln Beach located?
Lincoln Beach was located, it's still in the 9th Ward, but it's, how can I tell you how to get there? The easiest way for me to tell you now, based on the geography today, go out Gentilly, and you just head out past Lil Woods, and then you're gonna get to a cutoff for Lincoln Beach. And Lincoln Beach was the analog to Pontchartrain Beach. Pontchartrain Beach was where, quote unquote, during the Jim Crow era, the white folks had, and Lincoln Beach was the black area. And I can remember as a youngster going swimming out in Lincoln Beach. They had a pool, but they also had the opening to the Gulf of Mexico. And going out there, and Lincoln Beach, they used to have a listening room, and you could go in there and listen to the records. The Red Fox, yeah, Red Fox records, and early Richard Pryor.
Oh, no, that was no music.
That was a listening room. That's where you would go to.
That was the Red Fox.
That's different.
That was good comedians. They were comedians.
Oh man,
It was
Red
funny
Fox.
though.
Oh, Red Fox. So anyway, that's I grew up there.
Now, you come from a small or large family?
Small, well, medium-sized family. I had two brothers, and my mother was a school teacher. She taught 3rd grade. My father was a laboratory technician, which he learned when he was in the Army.
Well, what part of the Army served?
He served in the Army. He served in the U.S. Army in the Medical Corps. And I can remember one time he was stationed in San Antonio, and we would drive out there to San Antonio from New Orleans, and San Antonio's virtually on the other side of the big old state of Texas, and it was quite a drive. And when I was in the Army, I was...
You served in the military?
I served in the military.
Were you drafted or you volunteered?
I was caught in the middle because, as some people don't even know about it nowadays, but back then you were supposed to sign up when you became 18. You had to sign up for the draft. Of course, I didn't sign up.
I gotta come get you, and that's what they did.
Well, you know, my mother kept saying, she said, "Lil Val," that's what my birth name was Valerie Ferdinand III, and my daddy was Valerie Ferdinand Jr., and his daddy was Valerie Ferdinand. So I was called Lil Val. And it had nothing to do with size, it had to do with
age.
with age, where I fell in terms of the Valeries in the family. She said, "Lil Val, you know they're going to come and get you." And she didn't have to tell me who they was. I knew they.
You know who they were.
Yeah. So finally, she stayed on me. My mother wanted us to be upright people and to follow the law.
She wanted you to be she wanted you to be
But she understood it, you know.
and she knew with 3 boys.
She was supportive of us and everything. So she told me, they're going to come and get you. So I said, okay, I'm going to go down there. And I went down to the draft board. This elderly white woman looked at me and said, "How old you say you are?" I told her my age. She said, "You are breaking the law. You know you were supposed to." "Yes, ma'am. You come down here tomorrow at 12 o'clock and we're going to deal with you."
Oh,
I said, "Okay." I left. Went straight to the recruiter's office, where it was at the custom house at the foot of Canal Street, down there, Canal, and I guess that's around St. Peter, something like that. And I told the recruiter, I said, I want to go anywhere except Vietnam. Now this was 1965. Man, he must have felt sorry for me because he just shook his head and said, son, I can't promise you that. I said,
Go tell him.
because at that time, you know, anything that could walk was going to Vietnam.
No, because you walk
thought-
too late, so they might see you directly there.
So I said, I know you have some jobs that the Army does, but that you don't use in Vietnam. He said, but you have to pass a test for those kinds of jobs. I said, give me the test.
The test, that's all? Okay, then.
Give me the test. So they gave me a test. Long story short, I ended up in electronic maintenance of the Nike Hercules nuclear missile, which included arming the warhead. Now, there were only 3 places that the Nike Hercules nuclear missile was used at that time. One was in the United States, a place called Fort Bliss, Texas, which was in the desert, in El Paso. The other was in Germany, and the third place was in South Korea. I don't even know what method they used to determine where you were sent, but I ended up being sent to South Korea. I was on the last troop carrier ship that went across the Pacific to South Korea, because after that, that troop carrier was used to go to Vietnam. Busan, South Korea, it's on the bottom of South Korea. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing on the deck.
Hold
My
on.
duffel bag.
Hold on. They took you right in from New Orleans, or you gave you time to go home?
Oh, I was at, what's that? There's where's the place? It's in Louisiana.
Fort Polk?
Fort Polk.
Okay.
Yeah, Fort Polk.
They changed the name now.
Yeah, whatever. Fort Polk, that's where I got my basic training. You know, crawling 50 yards at night with a live machine gun fire over your head. You have to carry your M1 rifle in your arms and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I did all. I had.
So you had some training. You just see straight to Korea then. All right.
And then they sent us to Fort Bliss, Texas, and that's where I got the training in dealing with the electronics of the missile and all that kind of stuff, and the nuclear aspects of it.
So now you board on the ship to Korea from Fort.
Well, no, I went from, they gave us a train ride out to California. You remember the song, I Left My Heart in San Francisco?
Yes, I do.
We were going under the Golden Gate Bridge on the ship, headed to South Korea, and was it the Whispers? I forget what the group was, sang that song. They were singing that song we had on the record player while we going under the Golden Gate Bridge.
So you left your heart in San Francisco?
Left my heart in San Francisco.
You wish you left your ass, didn't you?
And so we were headed out. The ship stopped in Hawaii. I didn't get off the ship. I said, I can't deal with it. I don't, you know, I've heard of Hawaii as the playground for the rich. I'm not interested in seeing it. So we arrived in South Korea, like I said, early that morning. About 5 o'clock in the morning, the boat got there. 6 o'clock in the morning, we mustered out, standing on the deck. I'll never forget it. And it was a misty day. you know, and then the clouds are evaporating away and everything. And we standing up there on the deck. And they gave us tags.
Dog tag.
No, not dog tag. We had our dog tags, but no, this was a handwritten tag that they put on our lapel as to where we would get off. Now, we at the bottom of South Korea in Busan, and they gave me a tag where I would get off. I forgot what the tag said. But it turns out, and there was a troop, a soldier waiting there, say, "All right, soldier, this is where you," I said, "All right." And I got off there. And come to find out, I forget what battery I was in. There were 5 batteries across that
Battery company?
Yeah, well, it's not just company. The batteries were where the missiles were housed and everything. And so that's part of what my job was. We don't need to talk about all this stuff. But anyway, while I was there, I did so well at it, and you know, with arming nuclear warhead and all that stuff, that they gave me extra training. For about 2 weeks, I was trained in chemical, biological, and radiological warfare. As I describe it, looking back on it in later years, I would say I was a killing machine. Because any kind of warfare they wanted to deal with, I had been trained to deal with it. Plus, I dealt with the nuclear missile and all like that, stuff like that.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was into the electronic maintenance of the missiles, so I knew all that kind of stuff. And I had a facility for mathematics, blah, 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 and so forth. So, excuse me, as they say, the rest is history.
But how much time you served?
I served 3 years. There was a year of basic training and then training for the position I was in. Then the year overseas in South Korea. And then another year in Fort Bliss, Texas, where by then I was a sergeant and I had responsible for training.
You moved up there.
Well, yeah. That was only because I realized now, it was partially because of the MOS, the job position I had. Going back to that guy that recruited that told me, you know, you have to take a test. You know. I had a good solid grounding in mathematics, so I was able to do all of that. And I was interested in electronics. So
you already had it. Now, so you excelled in that. Did you have quite a few others look like you in that area?
There was some, yeah, but none at the base I was at. Like I said, they had 5 bases, and
You was the only one there.
I was the only one there.
But you shined though. You did your thing.
I don't know if I shined, but I did it well enough that whenever twice a year you had the inspectors would come out, and once a year you had there were 2 inspections, major inspections, not just, they had regular inspections, but they had these major inspections where they sent generals out and everything. And then we had what's called sea range. And sea range was when you got the opportunity to go out to the Pacific Ocean, and you would actually shoot one of the missiles.
So you got a chance to watch it in action?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it wasn't, I mean, it was nothing to see. I mean, but you had, because of my MOS, because of my job, I was responsible for the electronic maintenance of the missile. The missile was a guided missile. It was not just the difference between a rocket and a missile. A rocket is you shoot it at a place and it lands wherever it's set up to do. A guided missile, you can change the flight pattern
as it take flight?
Yeah, as it takes flight and what have you. So I was responsible for that. And I was fairly good at it. I don't know if I shined, but the mathematics didn't bother me. You see, and so, you know, the Army desegregated before any other aspects of the American society. And once the Army decided to desegregate, they had all up and down the ranks, you had different black soldiers doing different things. And not just, you know, fighting in the trenches, but all kinds of stuff. So I was one of the ones that was selected for that.
So the military gave you a little bit more foundation, would you say?
No, the military you had more opportunities if you were black. And that's why, coming out of World War II, the soldiers that came back from World War II, that's why you had the civil rights movement. People don't realize Medgar Evers was military. But you had bunches of people that came out of the military and had been doing all kinds of jobs. So you couldn't, the whole segregation thing where they had hand you a mop and a bucket and that was your job as a black person, that didn't, people, you know it was me.
So you go out the military. I was used to doing better in the military. So you expect to do, you know.
So you would not only expect, you have been trained to fight. You got to understand this.
Oh, that's
the mentality.
right.
You've been trained to fight.
Protect your own honor.
And you have soldiers, some of whom served in World War II, a number of whom served in Korea, in South Korea. My father served in Korea and in World War II. In the World War II, he was in the Pacific, and he was also in Korea. I never talked to him specifically about that because soldiers who have seen war do not think of war as entertainment. You can look at television today, you see all these war movies and this and that and so forth, and you think of it as entertainment. But people who have served, they know it's not entertainment. Mm-hmm. It's like, and they don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. They really don't. And you can, today, you can go, and there's still some old soldiers who are around who have served in Korea or served in World War II. Mm-hmm. And if you ask them to talk about the war, they don't do it. Mm-hmm. They don't do it.
Yeah, because it's still traumatizing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not just traumatizing in the sense of physical and emotional wounds. War is hell.
It's not a beautiful sight.
Nothing nice, and you don't want to relive that. You really don't. So that's, and you can find there's still some around veterans of war, and I'm not talking about just being in the army. I'm saying doing wartime. That's why some of the soldiers who served in Vietnam, you can't get them to talk about it. You know, that was what they called today traumatic, but it was worse than that. War, I can't begin to describe to you what it does to the average human being to be trained to kill another and then to actually kill somebody. So I'm fortunate. I've been shot, been stabbed, all that kind of stuff, but I've never had to kill anybody. I have seen it, I've been, but I've never had to kill somebody. And killing another human being, you kill a part of yourself when you do that. And that's why on the street what we call stone killers, what that means is somebody's heart has been turned to stone. They don't see another human being. They just do whatever they do. We don't need to go into that.
That's pretty good. I mean, I just want to kind of, go through some of your history. So in 65, you entered into the military.
Yeah, came out in 68.
So 68, you came back to New Orleans, Louisiana?
Yep.
And where, so now you know, the brother got skills now, plus you know what you're capable of doing. You worked on missiles,
Yeah.
Nuclear, and
Yeah.
chemical warfare. So you know you have the mind and capacity to do whatever you choose to do.
I was one of the reasons when I came back, one of the first social movements, political movements I got involved in was to fight against Water for Three, which was a nuclear missile, a nuclear energy plant out in the countryside in Louisiana. Because here's the thing about nuclear waste. Every nuclear facility that produces the electricity, which is the main thing that nuclear plants use for production, well, the core materials, they usually use uranium-235 and what have you. But that core material, the leftover from that material, is long-lasting. And believe it or not, the safest way to dispose of that is to wrap it in gold.
It's a lot of gold.
And to bury it in a salt mine. Because the sodium in the salt mine and the gold keep it from what they call leaching out. If you put it in any other metal container, it'll eventually
Eat through.
burn through that container and come out. So that you have this nuclear waste which is going to last for over 100 years.
Before it start breaking down into the original.
But yeah, before it fully dissipates, it'll be over 100 years. So what do you do with it? You know, that's why when they had that problem in Japan, Fukushima, that plant there, when they had that problem, you had all of this water that had been subject to the nuclear stuff, and they just put it into the Pacific, let it go into the Pacific. And they figured, well, the Pacific Ocean is long enough to handle
To absorb it.
Yeah, just to absorb it. But all of these problems. And so when I understood nuclear material, because I had been dealing with it with the nuclear missile, and when they built Water for Three, we were against it. We went out and demonstrated against it.
But you truly knew the harm, the value, and,
Yeah.
and how it can.
And I knew they wasn't going to wrap that shit in gold. I knew
Who gonna use gold to wrap nuclear in, huh?
the nuclear waste, because other than gold, all the other metals were subject to deteriorate under nuclear waste. But let's not focus on that. I mean,
Okay, let's just focus on, okay, so but you became an activist. You want to.
I became an activist at not, well, yeah, no, I can't, let me back up. I have been an activist a long time. When I was in 11th grade, when I was first arrested for sitting in at the Woolworth lunch counter on Rampart and Canal Street.
You was a part of the sit-in?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's
Talk about that then. 11th grade. Let's go back. All right. And what year was that? 63, 64?
62, 63, somewhere around there. Arrested Castle Haley was leading it. This was a core demonstration. And I just thought it was the right thing to do, so I did it, you know.
Okay, now you in Lower Ninth Ward.
Yeah.
And what high school you attended?
Oh, I graduated from St. Augustine High School, but I really became socially conscious at Rivers Frederick Junior High School. Because at Rivers Frederick in 7th grade, I got into photography. They used to call me the picture man. I tell you what, picture
did everything.
And then in 8th grade, I was introduced to Langston Hughes. And that was it. I mean, Langston Hughes just opened me up. The two bottom shelves of this bookcase there, that's Langston Hughes.
Now, he the one got that quote that once the mind is stretched, he said, did Langston Hughes wrote that?
No.
Okay, so I can't remember who wrote that.
I don't remember that, but Langston Hughes was my man. He had two autobiographies there over there, The Big C and Wonder as I Wander. Because he went all over the
At
world.
7 years of age, or seventh grade,
Yeah.
you became interested.
Well, in 8th grade, I became interested in Langston.
Okay, but you became a strong reader. You was already reading at that time?
I was reading a little bit of everything. It was in book clubs. I used to like to read. But
Hold on, sixth, seventh grade, what get you interested in book clubs? I mean, that's just, I didn't know you had access to that at that time.
Well, they used to have book clubs where you could, every month you get a book. My father, he didn't have a college education. He didn't finish college, never. For a little while he went to Leland. But he would always be reading Reader's Digest. He worked at Veterans Hospital. First when it was out there on the lakefront by Camp Leroy Johnson, and then it moved to Gravy Street where the old VA building is. Well, Gravy Street building right across from Charity Hospital, down the street from the main library. I would go to the main library after school, and then at 4:30 I would walk over to where my father was, when he'd get off, and we would get off, catch the bus home together, my father and I. And it was a long bus ride on the Galvez bus from Canal Street, well, from Tulane, really, all the way down to the lower Ninth Ward. But he would always have Reader's Digest, and that's what he would be reading. I didn't know any better. He, for I'm sorry, he just reading a magazine, you know, pocket-sized magazine. And so my mother was a third grade school teacher, so I grew up around people for whom books were, or reading, I should say, not books, but reading was second nature. So that's what I did. I mean, I read a lot of, all kinds of stories. I read a story about a Japanese Zero pilot. I read a story that, I remember there was a series of books that would humanize animals, the life cycle of animals, wolverines, and coyotes, and all kinds of stuff. So, I was reading.
Your mind was just
Wide open.
Just
Wide open. So when my 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Nelson, said, put your books away, I want you to hear something, I said, fine, I'm glad. I put the books away. I didn't like English and all that, Shakespeare and all that stuff. I didn't.
You were into that.
I wasn't into it, but I could do it, but I wasn't into it. She put on a record, Langston Hughes reciting his poetry to with a jazz band back up, and he had one poem that was about a woman who went around Harlem begging for money to bury her husband because he had died suddenly, and they didn't have any money to give him a proper send-off, as we would say in the home. So she went around Harlem begging for money. Last two lines of that poem were, a poor man ain't got no business to die. That was,
Poor man got no business to do.
ain't got no business to die. Oh. That got to me.
I mean, eighth grade.
Yeah.
Them last two lines touched you. I mean, what happened to you when you heard that? Where did your mind go?
Went down to the library and told the librarian, I want some Langston Hughes. I want to see some Langston Hughes. She told me where to go. She said, you'll find, and I expected to see, one or two books of poetry by Langston Hughes. I got there and it's like this. Where did you see Langston Hughes? Man, I guess that's what it means to be a writer. Langston Hughes, it turns out, was not only a major, he spoke 3 languages, Spanish, French, and English. He was a major influence on the seminal writer of Haiti, Jacques Romain, whose book, Masters of the Dew, is considered the pinnacle of Haitian literature. Nicolas Gilliard from Cuba wrote a lot of poetry, but he also wrote some in what's called a song, S-O-N form. And the song was a form of Cuban music similar to the blues. Langston encouraged Nicholas he said, you need to do that, you need to do more of that, so forth and so on. I never got to meet Langston Hughes, but one of the times, I was in Cuba twice. One of the times I was in Cuba was with Sonia Sanchez, and one of the guys asked Sonia, and I happened to be with her at the time, if she wanted to meet Nicholas Gilliard, and she said, of course. So he said, but we can't accommodate the whole group, you know. According to me, you can come, but that is, okay. So at that point in time, we met the guy, and they took us to the apartment where Nicholas Gilliard was staying. The first thing Nicholas Gilliard said to us when we got there, when we arrived there, where's Langston? By the time Langston had died, but you know, the news had not gotten to Cuba. People are realizing the United States had a major blackout on Cuba. And we think of it just in terms of not being able to travel to Cuba, but they made sure that the Cubans didn't get any information about what was going on in the United States. Because at that time, the civil rights movement was going on. You had the black and so forth.
Tell us a little bit about who was Nicholas
Gilliard. Nicholas Gilliard is one of the major poets of Cuba. In fact, I got a number up there. I got a number of Cuban poetry. Cuba's all right. Cuba, when Castro took over in '59, let me break it down to you this way. One of the major movements that they decided to do was increase the literacy of Cuba. They wanted everybody in Cuba to be able to read and write. And they had a whole literacy movement. And when I say literacy movement, it was deep. So if you were a Cuban and you went to college and university, so forth and so on, one of the things you had to do, you had to serve as a teacher teaching the peasants, quote unquote, and the people in the barrios was what we would call the ghettos, how to read and write. There's a beautiful movie called One Way or Another. That's the translation of it. It's not the Spanish name for it. And it's about a man and a woman. The man was a longshoreman, the woman was a school teacher. And the conflicts and the cooperation they had together in the context of this whole movement that was going on in Cuba, the literacy movement. It's a beautiful movie. But anyway, that poets are esteemed in Cuba. It's not just, it's open, come on in.
Hey.
Hello, I'm in the middle of an interview, come on in. Poets are esteemed in Cuba. So there's one of the Cuban poets, Nancy Morahan. I became friends with her. She was the one that took us to see Nicholas Gill. Yeah, have a seat. You can sit there, you can sit there. So anyway, that's why that came about.
Okay, now, but you said, Langston Hughes, didn't he visit Louisiana?
Yeah, he
1921, the flood, something like that. I remember I read something.
yeah, he stayed in the,
He was caught on the levee in the flood or something.
Langston Hughes.
27.
1921.
No, but it would have been 27.
27.
Was
When they had the big flood.
That major flood. But I don't know if he was here in 27, but he and Zora took a trip, and they traveled throughout the South by car. Zora Neale Hurston obtained a vehicle. I won't get into, that didn't work out. I'll leave it at, just leave it at that. We don't have time to go to the ins and outs of that. That didn't work out, but they did travel throughout. And he lived in New Orleans for a summer. He spent the summer here in New Orleans. I used to live there. And I didn't, of course, I didn't know anything about that until much later when I began studying Langston Hughes. So,
Yeah, I had read, I just thought I was reading something on him one day, because he would work, you know, a lot of people, what do you call it, ship port or whatever it was, and to travel, you know, he
Yeah.
would get out of where he was at.
Merchant Marine.
Yeah, so he worked the ships and he just traveled the world, and he traveled and writing, and, but he also, that's how he, some kind of way he ended up in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And he was in Baton Rouge in 1927, the flood, and he was caught on the levee. I read that, and he had spoke about that himself.
Yeah, well, Langston Hughes traveled all over the world, and he introduced me to people from all over the world.
So you met Langston Hughes?
I never met him.
Never met him. Okay, thanks.
When I'm saying he introduced me, I mean
Through his writing. Okay. So his writing took you all over the world.
Literally.
To read his
Literally.
in the 8th grade.
By the eighth, yeah, started in the eighth grade.
So by the time you got to 9th, 10th, you was already somewhere else. You know,
I remember I was a member of the Free Southern Theater, and we were doing work at the Free Southern Theater. And when I got to high school at St. Augustine, I wanted to continue to, you know, and so I went to check out their drama club. These Negroes sitting around doing what I call the British drawing room drama, talking about drinking tea and all that stuff. That's exactly. I said, no.
y'all did the wrong thing, yeah.
Civil rights movement going on and all this stuff, and this is what y'all know. And I come through the Free Southern Theater, you know, and we were doing.
But see, they didn't realize they was free.
And so
Now,
I was used to going all throughout the South in many places that are not even on the map, and we would be performing, and we had to.
You talking about in middle school or early high school?
No, after I got out of the Army.
Okay.
I got out 1965 to 68. So 68 I joined, late 68.
Well, we got to go back now. You still got to tell us about the sit-in in the 11th grade.
Well, that's nothing to tell you.
So we want to know, how did you get involved? You told me you started reading.
Well, reading, and my parents encouraged us. My father was my mother's school teacher, Tommy LaFawn High elementary school, and so I never went to Tommy LaFawn. The next school she was assigned to was Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley was a famous poet. I got one of her books. It's considered one of the first African American poets in the late 1700s, early 1800s. But my mother taught school, so she taught Tommy LaFawn, then Phyllis Wheatley, which is where I went to school for 5th and 6th grade. Then I went to Rivers Frederick 7th, 8th, and 9th. Turns out Rivers Frederick was a surgeon, among other things. He was a physician. And in a project I'm working on now, Seeing Black, which is, you see that little sign there behind, up next to the computer,
yeah.
Seeing Black. Well, Seeing Black is photography in New Orleans, 1840 and beyond. Photography as we know it was started by Daguerre in 1839 in France. A man by the name of Jules Léon, who was a domicile, lived here in New Orleans, but was born in France, happened to be in France in 39, learned photography, came back here, did an exhibit, and he was by profession a painter and a lithographer. And he had an exhibit here in New Orleans in 1840, which had some of his photography in it. And I became interested, as I said, I started off in photography in 7th grade at Rivers Frederick, so of course I was interested in that. And Jules Léon there was not enough documentation to tell what he was, but it was clear that he was of Jewish heritage. And he was also married to a black woman for at least 5 years. And I don't, in his later life, but I don't know specifics. So it's assumed that he was either, well, it was known that he was Jewish, but it was assumed that either he was black or, at that time, New Orleans was a mix of all kinds of people. So they say with him being married to a black woman, and not just in a placage. I can explain all this. Placage was a system where you had white men of means would have a family, quote unquote, and they would also have what we would call a side woman.
So they need a big house to come to New Orleans to have fun.
And well, it was more than that because placage was a social system. So it wasn't just like having a side woman. There was some legalities involved in it and so forth and so on. So anyway, photography got me interested in a bunch of stuff. And in the civil rights movement, I was interested because of my participation in that, which was long-standing, and my parents supported that. And as I was saying, my father had learned to be a laboratory technician in the Army. Come the 50s, he's a lab tech, and he became the leading lab tech at Veterans Hospital. So he was so good at it that they would have, when the interns came to train, they would send them to him as far as laboratory technicians to train under him. And because he didn't have a college degree, and they would have college degrees, they would be promoted, and they refused to promote him. Ends up that some of the people he trained became promoted over him and became his supervisor. I never heard him complain about it one day. That was just the way it was, you know. But, you know, I never could fully understand it, and as a child, you just know it, but you don't think about it. So you can imagine teaching somebody how to do something, and they become your supervisor,
And your superior.
your superior. But you taught them how to do whatever they do. You know, so that was the situation. So I grew up in a situation where people learned how to do what they're doing in various ways. Both of my grandfathers were ministers. One was a jack-leg preacher. He didn't have a church.
That's what we do, Jack Legs.
He didn't have a church, but
He was a preacher.
he was a preacher. And the other was Reverend Noah Copeland. And Reverend Noah Copeland had two churches, one in Violet, Louisiana, and one Greater Liberty Baptist Church, 1230 Desire. I'd gone to Greater Liberty Baptist Church up until I was around 14, 15 years old. And so I had that background. But
I mean, so about the 11th grade, when you saw the city and you was recruited to be a part of that, that's something that you decided, I'm going down there today?
no, it wasn't something I decided I'm going down there today. A lot of stuff was going on, so I was interested in it. And fortunately, I came under the leadership of, we used to call it Ming the Merciless, Aretha Castle Hill. That's the street that it was named after her. She became, among other things, she was a medical worker. She wasn't a medic per se, but she organized for Charity Hospital in New Hampshire. And that was one of the reasons I became interested in medical administration. So my first job was as the executive director of the Lower Ninth Ward Neighborhood Health Center. I did those things. I did that 69, 17.
So once you came out of the military, you was able to work in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and worked in
And you was the right one. You wanted to make a difference. You wanted to see something, some changes.
you're crediting too much information and to me, I mean, there's
There's a lot going on.
a lot going on and people had the opportunity to do different things. So you just did. It was a time period when people were consciously, black people were consciously attempting to spread our wings and do a lot of different things.
And they said the military was a big part of
The
preparing you for
military,
that way.
the military had prepared me. I had to say, after being in the military for 3 years, if the average white boy could do it, it couldn't be hard. Meaning that I understood from being next to people, the average white person didn't have no education of any substance in the United States. That shit they put on television and you would have you believe certain things about white people in general. No, white people in general were just as uneducated as black people in general. You know, I mean, let's be frank about it. Besides signing your name, people couldn't do much of no writing or nothing else like that.
So you, in the military, it was kind of an even.
In the military, when they opened up the military, Wilson, President Wilson and what have you, and part of the reason they had to open it, not had to open it, but they did open it up, was World War II and then the Korean conflict. They needed people to do all kinds of jobs. So, and they would train you in the military to do those jobs. You wouldn't have no college degree when you finished, but you knew how to do those jobs.
You get the training.
You had the training. So my father was a laboratory technician. You know, he didn't go through college to learn it.
So now what would you call your training? A nucleus, chemical physics, or just what would you call that training?
Killing machine.
Killing it. Oh, that's what it was.
Well, I mean, what else was I trained to do? I was a killer. I qualified with the 50 caliber machine gun, the 45 caliber handgun, the M1 rifle and everything. So I mean, you know, I was trained to pull a trigger. You know, so let's be clear about it. Let's be frank about it. What is a military besides a killing machine?
That's all it is.
You know, and I was good at it. Man told me, man, you ought to, if you will re-up for the military, we'll give you another stripe. That is, I was already a sergeant, and they made me a staff sergeant. $10,000 bonus and you could pick whatever area you wanted to go serve your time in. I asked that man, I said, you know who Bobby Bland is? Man said, what? I don't know who that is. I said, well, he got a song that expresses how I feel. It called, If You Don't Believe I'm Leaving, Count the Days That I'm Gone.
I'm out of here.
So at that point, that interview was, he just closed his book and said, okay, all right.
A couple days ago. Like then he said the 3 was gold.
And I think about it now, and I said, you know, back in what was that? 65, 68, 69, 70, 71, 1971. That was a hell of a temptation. $10,000 cash in your bank account. You become a staff sergeant. As a staff sergeant in the Army, you ain't had to do shit. You know, you didn't have to make no reveille. I was already like that, you know. I mean, I was a sergeant.
What is a reveille?
The morning muster. When you call in early in the morning, 6 o'clock, you got to they count people off and all that. They had to do none of that. You know, I would go to. They serve dinner at whatever time, 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'd go eat, leave, didn't have to do no KP. I'd done KP before, but I didn't once I got to be a sergeant. I didn't have to do any of that. KP was kitchen patrol. It meant everything from mopping and sweeping to peeling potatoes to, I mean, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I didn't have to do none of that stuff. I didn't have to show up. I got to the point where I'm on the base I was on in El Paso, Texas. I had my own room. I didn't have to sleep in the barracks with it was the barracks, but the barracks at either end, there was the general sleeping quarters for the soldiers. You had a cot and it was double-decker bunks. You slept up or down or whatever. And so forth. We had a foot locker. That was about it. You know, I got my own room.
You big time now. You can move up, man.
Moved up. I'm a sergeant, you know. And I was, at some point, I would be the ranking officer on the floor. And, you know, all that. So I had it, quote unquote, good. People go off of me. Can you imagine? Here it is, 1987. Somebody offers you $10,000 to keep on doing what you're doing.
You don't keep doing it. Most people keep doing it.
No. If you don't believe I'm leaving,
oh, okay.
count the days that I'm gone. You know, because I was interested. I wanted to continue to work in the civil rights movement, whatever. So when I come out, my first job, as I said, was the executive director of the Lower Ninth Ward
So now you knew
Health Center.
You knew you were leaving the military to go fight on the other end now.
Yeah.
Your whole thought was focused on,
Yeah.
I'm going to fight for my community, my people.
No. I was not that conscious.
Oh, okay.
I mean, let's be frank about it.
He wasn't that conscious, okay.
I wanted to do stuff. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do something.
But you knew what you did not want to do.
And staying in the Army was not it.
Okay.
You know. So I got into medical administration. Learned that. I was trained in that. Learned it, became very good at it. And but then 1970 got the opportunity to be a founding member of the Black Collegian magazine. Knew I was interested in literature, and that's what I did from 70 to 83. And then I went to the.
Now, give us a little history about the Collegian magazine.
Well, this was a period when black people were very much interested in higher education. And we had two trains running. One was HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. And the other was PWIs, predominantly white institutions, that's what we call them. And at the PWIs, you had, at that period, in the 60s, well, 60s and 70s, you had the development of what we call the Black Student Union. And my little brother, who was a physician, Dr. Keith C. Ferdinand, he was one of the stalwarts of the PWI situations. He was at Cornell. And remember Cornell because of the takeover at Cornell. Well, he was on the cover of Life, Time, one of them, with a shotgun. You know, that was, you know, he was crazy. He was from Louisville. we come up, in the lower ninth ward, it was like a gun was just,
But
that was another tool.
But you know, when back then, I grew up in a country where I can remember from high school, particular white guys, they would drive to school with the trucks in the back of the, hanging on the right, but they going 100 after they leave school. So that was not a big deal. Yeah, rifle was no, to see a gun was not a big deal.
Right.
So
Right, and it did not induce fear in you.
No, because almost every young boy had a gun.
Yeah.
Because you had to go hunt. Your dad, your grandfather, somebody took you hunting. So it's not a big deal. But now it is.
I wrote a poem about you never know how you react until you confront it with that iron asshole of a pistol in your face.
Because of a pistol.
That is something, quote unquote, that was common. One of the incidents I remember from being in the Army, early one morning, must have been about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody's pounding on my door. Ferdinand! All this. I get up. Come on, he's gonna kill him. Who gonna kill what? What you talking about? So, as I said, I was the ranking soldier on the floor at the time. They come got me because 2 soldiers that got into an argument. One soldier had the other one, had a hand around his neck, his left hand around the guy's neck, and a .25 automatic stuck up his nose. He's gonna shoot him. And I had to defuse the situation because there wasn't no other ranking officer or anything around. So when I get there, some kind of way I got the guy to talking. First he was talking about he gonna shoot him, and then he's talking to me and we having a conversation. And I persuaded him, I said, look, man, I don't know about this dude here, but I know your life is too important to be thrown away behind a piece of trash like this. Think about your life, what you want to do in life and so forth. So don't let this dude provoke you into doing something that will stop you from achieving the rest of your life. So that's the way I'm talking to. We're having a conversation, and I tell him to just keep him talking, because I know as long as I can keep him talking, he ain't killing nobody. Mm-hmm. And we keep talking, and finally I get him to lower the gun. And I said, look, y'all know my job is to report incidents like this. But if you go to sleep, you go down there, and I didn't see no gun, tomorrow it'll be okay. And that's what happened. So some soldiers went to the barracks one way, and some went the other way. Never had a problem again. Never had that problem again. And they had a whole different kind of respect for me. And of course, I just went back and went to sleep. He shot him, that was, he was going to the bed. I was going back to sleep.
Get some rest, huh?
You know, when you're in the army, that's the way you think. It's matter of fact. Either it is or it ain't. So
In between.
that was my whole demeanor, because I had been trained, like I said, as a killing machine. So either you was gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. If you're not gonna do it, you might as well go to sleep or go do whatever you're gonna do. There's no sense in just, spending time stewing about, no. Just do it or don't do it. That was it.
But that type of training, when you came, you already had the training. Your mom and dad got you rated. Now to sit in 11th grade at the Woodworth drugstore. Now what was that experience like?
Woodworth 5 and dime.
Yeah. What was that like for you in 11th? You still in high school. You talking about sitting in? They treating you like a runaway slave. So what was that experience like? You got to tell us that experience for you.
I don't remember it as being traumatic or nothing. It was just something you did. We were trained in terms of nonviolent resistance and everything else like that.
Well, who trained you?
Corps. Yeah.
So you was part of that Ronnie Moore group?
Yeah, Ronnie Moore was around at that time, but as I said, Aretha was the leader. I have a lot of respect for black women because they've been the leaders of the movements. They have been the soldiers. They have been the frontliners. They have not been the lionized leader. It wasn't Martin Luther King or nothing, but Martin Luther King did not exist without black women. And that's why I always liked Ava DuVernay's piece, Selma, when she had this movie about that. Because in Selma, it showed Coretta Scott King confronting Martin. And she was fierce. And that's the way black women were.
War? What you mean war?
No, I'm talking about in the context of the civil rights movement.
They've been that way.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, but I'm saying in the context of the civil rights movement, because the civil rights movement is celebrated around male leadership, you do not see, it's not presented publicly, and seldom lionized.
But when you was a part of it, you saw females in the front line.
All the time. All the time. Period. There's no discussion about that. And you see, I'm about to get off into areas that have confused some people. But look, what is the image you see, the popular image of a white woman? Just whatever it is in your mind, just think about what is the popular image of a white woman. And the popular image of a black woman is twofold. Either sexualized or is domesticated. She's supposed to take care of the children, take care of the house, blah, 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 blah. Or she's a sexual fantasy. That's it. You understand what I'm saying? The white woman. Do you see a white woman as a sexual fantasy? Well, depends now. If you, quote unquote, upper status, got money, you want to get you a white woman, right? But do you see a white woman as taking care of the children? No.
Taking care of community.
You understand what I'm saying? That's not what comes to mind.
But look, I know you say you traveled to Africa. I traveled to Africa. And I got a chance to do a lot of research. But it's only in this country I see where our women are shown as matriarchs. But when I go to Africa, women are shown as the man is over his household, over his community,
Yeah.
but the women have the most powerful role.
Yeah.
You know, they are the healers. They are the.
See, that's because of the way we've been taught to look at
Right.
this.
So that's what I'm saying. So in this country, we've been taught to look at it from another eye view.
I'm gonna ask you this: when you went into the marketplace in Africa, who was doing all the selling?
Women. But guess who did all the sewing? Who did all the sewing? That was interesting to me. That
Yeah,
men did all the telling. Men was doing all the sewing. Now in this country, I never seen that before.
Okay,
So
well,
that was a difference.
Yeah, all I'm saying is this.
But the men, I said, the women also was in the fields doing the work, but the men was out there hunting. They was fishing. So, you know, everybody had a role they was playing. That's why that community existed.
That depends on what community you were in. When I was in Ghana, you know, this stool here, the weavers were males, predominantly. I'd never seen that before.
I've never seen it either.
I'd never seen it before. But then I began to realize something. I said, the roles or the professions that people have are basically defined by how the society is organized. Okay? And that's Cabral, who is, I'm going to call Cabral P-A-I-G-C, from Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde Islands. Cabral taught us, he said, whatever you believe in, that's what you believe in. Let's put the emphasis in you believe in what you believe in. That's what you believe. He said, I'm not going to tell somebody who's a Christian, you got to do this to fight. I'm not going to tell somebody who's a Muslim, you got to do this to fight. I'm not going to tell somebody who's an animist, that is, they believe in objects, that you have to do this to fight, you know. So he said, a bullet will kill all of us. You know, you have to, we learn to fight, we're fighting for our independence, and we learn to respect each other. Whatever your beliefs are, that might be what you believe. You know, but don't believe that what you believe is what somebody else has to believe. I'm going to call Cabral. You know, and I understood that. I said, yeah, that makes sense to me. Then he has a whole theory about women. He talks about women in the movement, and under Cabral was when you started seeing the pictures of women with arms, with guns. Like remember the boy, you probably old enough to remember the boycott golf movement? There was a big movement, and there would be a picture of a woman in South Africa not South Africa, Mozambique, with a rifle on the shoulder holding a baby and everything like that. And I started thinking about it and giving thought to it. Say, now why is it that we see a man with a gun, but we don't see a woman with a gun? And everybody know they got some crazy ass women in New Orleans. You don't mess with them New Orleans women.
Not with a gun, too, man.
You know, I mean, so I started thinking about things, and as I thought about things, I started getting a different perspective, and I understood that we live in societies that are governed by quote-unquote males, the patriarchal society. And not all societies in Africa were patriarchal societies.
That's true.
And there's a famous, Sarauna is a famous African movie done by Med Hondo. Med was a brother out of, I believe, Morocco. But Med did this movie, Sarauna. And at the end of Sarauna, at the end of the movie, they were fighting the French. And she says, Sarauna tells the people, she said, we cannot win this war right now. We have to retreat to the mountains. But when we go to the mountains, we're going to allow everybody to do whatever they do. And you are not supposed to impose what we don't realize is that women are not like that. Men have imposed their will on them and given the opportunity to quote unquote speak their piece. Women will have a lot more to say than the average male. So being in the civil rights movement, I understood it from the standpoint of what the civil rights movement was about. Women were the main factors in that.
They're the best organizers, very detail oriented.
Not the best. They were the only organizers in many cases.
But you know what? Yes, still, I mean, when I coming out of America, growing up in a little small country town,
Yeah.
where you being trampled on, you being second class, you stay on this side of the track, stay on this side, Then moving into another big city like Baton Rouge, I started learning.
Baton Rouge is a big city.
Yeah, at that time. I come out of I come out of a community of 3,000 people. So Baton Rouge at that time was a big city. So, but remember, I done moved up.
Okay.
I come from a family of 8.
Yeah,
you got all the boys staying in one room in one bed.
Yeah.
Then we moved up. Everybody had a bunk bed. There was a bed under the bunk bed. So we had 3 beds. We slide one out.
Yeah.
So we moved up, right?
Yeah.
But we had 5 girls. Now we got that many women in the house.
Yeah.
And I had a niece and a nephew was born. So we had 12 people in one household, right? So when I went to college, I had my own room. You understand this? I done moved up. But the people in Baton Rouge that looked like us, they was a little more docile, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more conditioned. And I'm like, I come from one extreme.
That's only one way to look at it.
Right, I'm just saying, but there was being educated, but not stepping out to challenge the system, right? At least I didn't see much of that.
Yeah.
And so I started coming to New Orleans. My best friend became 2 people from New Orleans.
Uh-huh.
So now I come to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. I'm looking at all these different kind of brothers up here. And I see the family. I saw family more engaged. I saw family getting involved. I saw the whole family doing everything together. I come from a small town. We've done that, but not to that level. Right? So New Orleans. But now I traveled to Africa. My first trip was to Egypt. I went with Dr. Vince Joseph. Right?
Yeah.
So I went there. I'm a Christian. So now I get a whole nother experience.
Yeah.
My mind of something happened here. Like, hold on now. We done this, we done that. You telling me that we created this? What? Somebody been lying to us, right? So my next trip, I go to Senegal. And I'm like,
well, Senegal is a whole different.
A whole nother time. I'm like, hold on. So I go back a third trip. I'm going to do business because I want our people are such a great people.
Yeah.
You need to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
I know very few of us are going in there. I'm bringing it back. That's what my attitude. I'm bringing Africa back to my people.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about to show you that who we are.
Yeah.
The clothes, the design, the shoes. I had never seen shoes with a crocodile. I had never saw that, man. And I'm watching people make this.
Yeah.
Who are we? You understand?
Yeah.
Now I played football at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
I saw who we were.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we got opportunity. We rose. When you give that brother a chance, we thrive. Matter of fact, we become so good at we do that. Ain't nobody can compete with you but another one of you. Mm-hmm. So who are you? Who are you that you can do things on this level? So when I went to Africa quite a few times and started seeing the greatness of my people, and I saw a patriotic society. I had never saw where children, male, female, bow or what they curtsy, whatever the European call it, to an adult. I had never seen that. That was a dead culture. You don't even show up at nobody else's place, not, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I had never seen that, man. So I saw people honoring each other. You know, that was a whole nother experience of these people. Like, hold on now, I'm like, everybody's a king.
Yeah.
Everybody's a queen. 'Cause when you were in a child show, everybody knew their place. Those days was kind of becoming, you know, in our community, it was so slowly being distanced. You know, I grew up in that kind of community. So I'm in Africa, and to this day, I promise, a lot of that still is in existence, a lot of it's not. So my experience was a lot different, and I began to look at who we are, who we were, and like I said, how we've been trained, how we've been conditioned, and who told us who we were,
Yeah.
and how people still telling us who we are. So now, and that's why I'm here today, because I want to sit down and talk with a brother like you who did writing, studied, researching on the culture of his people, to bring forward another perspective, another story, to hear what you had to say, because now, when we talk about the patriotic society, we talk about the matriarchal society, women in the movement, women from, what her name was again?
Salaam.
No, I'm not talking about Aruna, I'm talking about, what the name was, what the name was?
Aretha
Yeah.
Castle?
I'm talking about back in the old days, our girl who carried the gun, who brought people
Oh,
underground
Harriet
railroad, Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
So we know the things that our women did to save out there, save their people, save their.
No, we don't.
To the degree we might not,
We don't
not-
know. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
We don't know. Somebody who's famous like Harriet Tubman, whom there's a picture of, and who quote unquote stole, the way I put it, she stole our people from thieves.
She better be playing what was already hers. Huh?
She stole our people from thieves.
Yeah.
But once you understand that,
That's a good way to put it.
it's clear. We don't understand patriarchy because it is so ingrained in the societies that we live in. We just haven't thought. But once you see the civil rights movement and start to scratch the surface and look at the demonstrations that went on, who led the demonstrations, who organized the demonstrations, then you have a different respect for women. The problem is that we forget that women are human beings and that we think that what men have done is an achievement because they are male. No. You see, all human beings, whether they're male or female, can make contributions to society. You see, but when you have one sector of society that is oppressed and exploited by the other sector, then it's a problem. For a male who is under the foot of the white man all the time, looking to have some place he can put his foot, and he sees it quote unquote in terms of women, because the society is a patriarchal society, and it says women are not supposed to be leaders. But when you get to the civil rights movement, women wasn't having that. And internally, those battles happen, you know. And so we know internally, don't mess with Big Mama. We know, you know that. I don't care, you know, you can be, you know, Papa so-and-so, you Reverend so-and-so, don't mess with Big Mama.
They knew not to mess with.
Right? And I mean, and that has nothing to do with whether her name was Gertrude, Pauletta, or whatever. You don't mess with Big Mama. You know, and why was that? Because Big Mama didn't put up with no patriarchal bullshit. That's all it was. And why was that? Because the average black woman outlived the average black male. She was there and had to take care of, that's right, had to take care of the family. Because the man was no longer around. For various reasons. I'm not getting into all the reasons. There are various reasons, but that was a reality. And we bowed our head to reality because we realized that reality was stronger than just some social norms that were placed on us. Huh?
She know where all the papers are.
You understand what I'm saying? And so what I'm saying is, let reality be our guide. Let's look at what is real in our lives. And when we start looking at what is real rather than what is quote unquote the social norm, then we have different ideas. You know? And so can nobody tell the average black person that a woman can't be in charge of nothing?
Oh, no, we know better than that. Yeah.
Why do we know better than that?
We watch a culture all our lives. Yeah. Because a lot of times women have to take over everything.
So what we understand, whether we give name to it or not, is that human endeavor that is not man's work or woman's work. Human endeavor is for all human beings, male or female. And we grow up knowing that, even if we can't identify that with the front part of our mouths, as my daddy used to say. You know, we know it. We know that. And that's a hard thing for many people to accept, because it goes counter to what we've been taught in school. Right? So the father of the nation is who? Who were the forefathers?
The white man?
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I used to wonder, how can men be in charge of everything and they can't give birth to babies? So you cannot pass on.
But I heard one better, and I heard that God got such a great sense of humor. He gave man a strong desire for something, but he put the woman in charge of it.
Yeah. So, well, as I said, I used to do a lot of reading. One of the things I read about was the animal world. And in the animal world, the female is in charge of a lot of stuff. You think lion is big shit with a lioness. You understand what I'm saying? And these things I began to understand better and better as I looked. And once we looked without prejudice, without the prejudice of education,
Okay.
the way we've been educated.
Or the miseducation.
That's Carter G. Woodson told us, miseducation of the Negro. He told us, he said, we've been trained to go to the back door, so much so that if we go to the back and there is no door, we will build a door
Make one, man.
in the back. We'll make a door in the back.
How about the one would you be more comfortable in your own hole in the ground than in the golden toilet of your master?
Yeah, well, there's another way to look at it. That's true too. And that's because we've been taught to value gold, right? And we've been taught, who's taught us that? That's been taught to us by people who come from lands where there is no gold. I'll stop right there. I'll stop right there. You understand what I'm saying? When you start thinking about gold, you know, that's why the gold rush on the West Coast was such a big thing. Because for the first time they found some gold in quote unquote North America.
Yeah, they came in looking for gold.
Came here looking for gold, El Dorado and everything else like that in Florida. But there ain't no gold there. I won't go too much farther to this because it's going to take us into political discussions that I don't think we can do in 5 or 10 minutes. But the reality is, much of what we have been taught.
Yeah, I think it brought out perspective for us.
That's right. Has moved us away from the realities that we live with on a day-to-day basis. And when we start to deal with our reality as quote unquote our teachers, rather than white people being our teachers. we'll see different work, we'll look at the world different.
Now, let's talk about all your writings and your research. How many books have you written?
Stuff up there.
Stuff up there. All the stuff up there. Right, come on. Talk about your writing, what your focus was.
I don't have a focus. I mean, life is my focus. So that at different times I'm interested in different things. As I said, first got interested in photography. Those bottom 3 shelves are all photographs. Well, part of that, the shelf above that, all about photography. Because that's what I was interested in that, to understand, to understand it.
So whatever you interested in, you read about it. You just didn't jump into it. You wanted to find out the inner makings of what's,
Well, no, I did not assume that what I wanted to learn about, I learned from a book, because I learned photography from Mr. Conrad, who was the industrial arts teacher. I took one of the industrial arts classes, turned it into a dark room.
in junior high.
In fact, Rivers Frederick Junior High School. He taught me. I used to do developing stuff by hand and all like that. So I was not under the quote unquote misapprehension that the essence of a thing was you learned it from a book. In fact, the essence of a thing you learn by doing it, howsoever you do it. If you were quote unquote well educated, there were books that would help you do whatever it is you wanted to do. So once I became interested in photography, I looked at it. But as I became interested in literature and so forth and so on, I studied that and studied it in a practical sense, what people were writing, what they were doing, and saying and so forth. And I don't want to get off again.
But I want you to talk about the movement, the Black literature movement that you was a part of.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? Who were some of the people that was involved with it?
Came about because black people got tired of seeing lies. They said, you read half of the books that are from great American literature, all the way up through Faulkner. They didn't have no understanding of black people. It just was not there.
They didn't care. It was
A lot of writers from different places that I had never heard of before. And he introduced me to a lot of Chinese and Japanese writers. So I got into that as a result of Langston Hughes. But if it hadn't been for Langston Hughes, I probably never would have come across those kinds of writers.
When you started comparing the writing styles, the thought process,
I was not, so you attributing, you attributing to me consciousness that I did not have.
I mean, but you had that when you read all about the Japanese experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Chinese experience, which is different from your experience.
Yeah.
Or there might have been some cross references.
Uh-huh.
So what would be some of those differences or some of the cross references as you studied other people's history and culture through Langston Hughes?
Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are skinny, some people are fat. Some people speak this language, some people speak another language. That's all it is.
But basically everybody the same.
That's all part of the human experience. I'm not going to say we all the same. We have different ways of being human. And that's part of the human experience. And once you understand the variety of the human experience, so that you see those white books on the third shelf down.
Right.
That's my collection of haiku poetry. Haiku is a Japanese poetry form. But I adopted it and started doing that and was very interested in that form of writing. In Japan, they have the language is such that they have symbols and sounds for their literacy. We use the alphabet in the English language, so forth and so on. And the alphabet and the words are broken down into syllables, and it doesn't have the same thing as in Japan. So in Japan, the haiku is 17 syllables, right? But it's actually 17 symbols, 17 different things. Here, we just say it's syllables, so that's what we break it down. And that's what we translated that. But it's just another way of being human.
So is any prefer writing style you like, or
No.
you're a big? I see you're a big fan of poetry. So you write a lot of poetry.
I have written a lot of poetry. I don't write a lot of poetry now. Poetry, in fact, I first made my mark as a playwright doing plays. I was reading one of my plays last night that I'd written a long time ago. I knew I wrote it. I knew what it was about. And then when I read it, I said, oh, damn, that's pretty good. You got that. Because it's been years since I looked at it, you know.
What was the first play you wrote? That was the first play you read?
No, the first play I wrote was, actually it was an adaptation of a short story. It's called A Picket. It's about being on a picket line in the civil rights movement. That was the first play I wrote. The second play was Mama, and then there was a number of plays after Mama. Mama was interesting. At the end of Mama, this is a scene where the strong female comes into conflict with her mother. That's why it's called Mama. And her mother slaps her down to the ground. She looks up at her mama and calls her, "You're just an old nigger woman. You ain't gonna never change." And at that point, the mother is stunned and sits down and tells her, she said, when I was coming up, my mother called me over one day and told me, she said, I got something I want to tell you. And she said, I thought she was going to tell me how cute I was looking and blah, blah, blah. And her mother told her, she said, we's niggas. We always be niggas. And that's, she said, I don't believe that now. At the time, that's what I believed. And so this was at the height of the civil rights movement, so you know how to get audience. But the whole question of who we are, self-identity, is a big thing.
And we still define who we are.
Not only defining who we are, defining whether or not we're niggas.
Oh.
I mean, you walk on the street, you hear that every day.
All day.
Define that. What does that mean? That we think of ourselves that way.
And that's when you wrote that, how you process that? What's your thoughts?
My process, we're moving beyond that. But you can't move it until you acknowledge that's. You can't move beyond your past until you acknowledge your past. So if you go move beyond being this, that, or the other, you got to acknowledge, yes, I was that. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to acknowledge our own participation in the oppression and exploitation of our identities. And very often, we repeat that because we live in it. To be a good American is to hate black people.
So in other words, even if you one of those people, you gotta hate yourself.
That's right.
Or hate those who look like you.
That's right.
And for some reason, those people do get rewarded in this country.
That's right. And when I asked you the question about who the founding fathers are, it was not a rhetorical question. We think about it. What we will end up saying is the white men created this thing. Those are our fathers. So if I ask you what your mother tongue is, you will not think about white people. If I say Big Mama, you ain't gonna think about no white woman. I don't even have to know who your grandmother was, but if I say Big Mama, you ain't. Come on
Yeah,
now,
white.
you understand what I'm saying? It may be the case that your grandmother was a white woman, but still, when you say Big Mama,
That's zero here. They give you something, a point of,
it's a point of reference.
reference. Yeah.
But it's a point of reference. Again, that's why Cabral told us, deal with your reality. What is your reality? And once you understand your reality, we were just looking at that book that is right there. This woman,
Picture book.
it's a picture book. It's called Divine. But and if you flip through it, you have an appreciation of black women. When you get to the end of the book, she has a picture of her mother. Her mother was a white woman. And she acknowledges her mother at the end. Go all the way to the end of the book.
Yeah, you want to see some more pictures? See what you got in here.
Oh, it's all kinds of stuff. She is
Yes.
a master photographer. All right, just the page before that.
Okay.
That's her.
Well, that's the one.
Yeah, that's her. That's her mother.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I, I want to get up. Why do you think that most of the sort of like the grassroots constituency that were, activists, civil rights, most of them were creative people? Like you, Amir Baraka, Tariq.
That's the human expression
Tom.
altogether. We live in a society which is oppressive and exploiting human beings, and so does not value human expression and human creativity except if they can make money off of it. They can't make the money off of their interested. And we got stuff we do just because we feel like doing it, whether we can make money off it or not.
Right.
And we value that. That's not valued in the patriarchal American system. Can you sell it? Can you make money doing that? Well, what good is it?
Yeah, don't make money, don't make sense in America.
That's right. That's right. But we come from a people where it's not about making money. Zippity-doo-dah, I'm doing this because I feel like it.
Joy.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, and that's sort of like juxtapose the civil rights, the Black Arts Movement, the Black Panthers, and all of those. So they all sort of came together within the Black Arts.
Yeah.
So the Black Panthers, the Civil Rights Movement, because all these were kind of like different people, but they basically came together because they
It
had.
had to do with a lot of it had to do with Vietnam. And the soldiers just wasn't putting up with it. And in fact, there are very few movies that show you what happened during the Vietnam movement, where black people started, black soldiers started doing it for self and didn't care what the white soldiers said. there was a thing called fragging, F-R-A-G-G-I-N-G. That meant killing white officers.
Okay.
Yeah, that was happening. They would shoot them.
Mm.
You know. These realities are seldom talked about. But what was happening among black people, which you find time and time again, we decide how we want to do it, and we just do that. And in general societies, black women often took the lead on stuff and were fierce at it and stuff. Never will forget, I'm in Cuba. This is the second time I'm in Cuba. And we had a meeting. Thomas Borges was there. He's from Nicaragua. Had a gun on his hip, speaking. You know, you're used to people giving intellectual talks, and this man had a gun and just, you know, he talked. Anyway, at the end of his speech, and a couple other people spoke, we get up intermission, and as you're going down the aisle, you know, you speak to people. You know how we do. You know? Hey, hello, my name's Kalamu. I'm so open, walking on by. And one of the women I spoke to, as I'm walking, she said, hey, hi, my name is Asada. And I'm halfway down, I turn around and come back. I said, Asada?
That one?
Yeah. She said, yeah. Asada Shakur? Yeah. And we struck up a friendship right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, that was in Cuba.
Yeah, she had been over there a long time.
Yeah, she'd been there a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we were,
So what caused you to start traveling to Cuba?
first time I went because of film. I was interested in film. And I was part of a delegation that went to look at Cuban film. We were there for like a week and a half. And all we did was look at movies and discuss movie making. They had the directors and what have you. So I did that. And this movie I was thinking about, One Way or Another. Sarah, forget her last name. She's a Cuban woman. She was deceased at that time, but she had done it. Black woman talking about the whole literacy thing and what have you in Cuba. And I've traveled all over, virtually all over the world. One place I found that I liked being in and didn't know I was going to like it at all was Germany. I was in Munich twice. Go to Munich, went to one of the concentration camps. What have you. France, England, as far as those states go.
What did you like about Germany?
Well, I did theater work, so there were people there doing. I found out the concentration camps were not built primarily, or first off, for the Jews. The people that were initially put in the concentration camps were the hardest, primarily intellectuals, and what have you. And there were a number of visual artists and theater artists and what have you in Germany.
That's why they was taking the art. They were stealing the art from them. Not stealing, but taking the art.
Yeah, the
Just
Nazis, they would
Stealing it.
yeah, they were stealing it. It wasn't,
Yeah, but they-
They had asked for it, they stole it.
it's, Bogart, as we used to say. So that's what I liked about Germany. And then what many people don't realize is that, two things. One, in terms of language, a lot of the English language that we use is based on some German words and so forth. And then, deeper than that, I believe it was the first time I was in Munich. I was supposed to meet somebody to have a discussion with them. Well, meet me in Marienplatz. I said, okay, yeah, that's the train stop. I can find that. Meet me by the fountain. I said, the fountain? What fountain? Across from the beer hall. I said, what beer hall? I said, the beer hall where Hitler used to be. You won't miss it. I said, okay. So I get there early because I want to make sure I don't, I get there early. I get to Marienplatz. There's the fountain. I see that. And I see where the beer hall is. I don't go in the beer hall. So I decide to walk around a little bit while I'm there. While I'm walking around at the stores, I look up and there's this sign. Verline für Musik. I said, that's Verline. I know it, same color scheme, green and white.
On Canal Street.
On Canal, same color.
Music.
But this was the German, the original, quote unquote, the original Verline. Right? And that's, at that point, my mind starts to flip through Canal Street and what have you, and I realize a lot of what we grew up with in the retail sector was Jewish enterprises.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't even, well, we never thought of it in those terms.
We never thought of it as Germans.
Germans.
We just say Jew. We separated the two.
Yeah.
Just realize Jews ain't know that most of them are Germans.
So,
Or Russian, one or the other.
Krauss, Mark Isaacs, Rubenstein brothers, you just,
Right.
all
the Ray and Duos.
yeah, all of that stuff. We grew up with it. We didn't,
Didn't ever think.
and it was only at that moment when I saw that sign, and it was green and white, the same as Wordlines, I said, that's where that came from. That's where that came from. I never even knew it. So that also turns out New Orleans is one of the few places in the Deep South where the Jewish community can be what we would call out Jewish and not have to worry about a backlash. Other places in the South, they don't put up with that because the Gentiles are definitely anti-Semitic. And we're so used to seeing or being under the oppression of white people. We just don't even, it doesn't even occur to us that somebody's going to hate somebody because they're Jewish when they look like white people's clothes.
Yeah.
The average person. I'm just.
Yeah. But really, it's a religion. It's not a.
Right.
Nothing to do with the color of the skin.
Right. But that's what once we grew up, and as I said, by traveling, I got to see so many different things. And that's what helped me a lot. And I have traveled throughout Asia, throughout England, well, not England, Europe, and somewhat in South America, Central America, I was in Nicaragua, Brazil, Suriname. Those.
So you was up there. Noriega was up there. He was the leader there.
Noriega was in Panama.
Panama. Okay.
They did Noriega wrong just for doing like they do.
Look, Noriega forgot that who he was doing business with.
No, he didn't forget. They just at one point said, no, we got to get him out the way. It was cold blooded.
Took him. First of all, went to his country and arrested him.
Cold blooded.
President of a country.
Cold blooded.
When they look under Barack Obama, they went to Africa and killed 3 African leaders.
Cold blooded. And whenever you try and Barack may have been a black president, but it was still a white country. That's all I got to say. That sums it up right there, and lets you know what was happening, what the role he played. He might have been president, but it was still a white country, and people wasn't playing. Like I told you, I have been trained as a soldier, so I do.
You can do what you got to do. But the thing about it, they train us so well as soldiers that we'll take each other out.
In a minute. In a minute. And we don't even know why it is the way it is. Why I got that picture sitting bull up there.
I've been looking at that picture, nice picture.
Say, what did I do? What law have I? What law have I?
No longer we want what we want.
Right.
The Europeans got the gun, that was it.
That was it.
They never looked back.
Never looked back. So I think we got enough to chew on for right now. You're free to
One
come
more.
back.
I know you work with a lot of students here in the city, and you've started schools and workshops and writing. How did you, why did you begin the Haitiana? Was it the
Yeah,
Haitiana
Haitiana
school?
School.
I know that's not the full name, but what's the full
Haitiana
name?
Work Study Center.
Yeah.
That was my brother and my wife at the time, Kenneth, who's celebrating his birthday Saturday. Got to go by his house and help him celebrate. He's right under me, my brother under me. And my wife at the time, Tiara Croissant. They started in school. Kenneth had been gone to school in Columbia for a while and was up in New York working with Father Lucas. And they had a school up in Harlem. And Tiara had the idea she wanted to do a school. Because down here, you know, we had had a number of quote unquote nursery schools where they took children from preschool up through the beginning grades. And Haitiana went all the way up to 4th grade. As my daughter said to me, the youngest daughter, she said, I didn't even have to open up a book until 6th grade because I wasn't teaching nothing. We already knew all that stuff.
Now what did Haitiana mean?
Haitiana is Kiswahili, means to work together. But A-N-A as a suffix on the word means to do it collectively. So that's and once you understand the structure of Swahili, it's very easy language to learn, to work in, and so forth and so on.
What have happened to, one time years ago, Swahili was the key language, language that we used to connect a lot of different conversations, organizations.
That was because of Karenga and Nguzo Saba, the seventh principle, Umoja, Kuchandali, like Eugene, and so forth and so on. And again, Swahili was used because it has a definite pronunciation. You don't have no, as somebody said to me, how come you got Tonti, which is street is T-O-N-T-I, but you got Conti, which is C-O-N-T-I. Seemed like that would be the Conti. They said, no. I said, well, part of that has to do with the languages here in New Orleans. Part of the time you lived under the French administration, and part of the time you lived under the Spanish administration. So you got two different.
Now we got the English administration.
Well, in fact, on Canal Street, some of the old light posts still have, even though they've been painted over, but they have the 4 administrations on each of the 4 sides of the light post.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are the 4?
You have the French administration, no, you have the colonial administration, the French administration, Spanish administration, and the American administration.
There is administration? I thought it was colonial.
I bet your driver's license is American.
I was gonna say that.
I bet you that.
Now you gotta tell us why, before we set it down, when you went from Valerie Fernandez,
The third.
the
yeah.
third,
Yeah.
to Kalamu
Kalamu
Yasaslav. What happened? See that, what they call it, transition?
Well, Valerie was French, Ferdinand was Spanish, and that was the name through the genealogy on the male side of the family. There were 3 Ferdinands, 3 Valeries, and during the civil rights movement, during that whole period, we used to have what we call free names and slave names, or government names, right? So Valerie was my government name, and Kalamu was my free name. That was the name that we chose.
But now, how old were you when you started doing this?
I chose my name when I came back from the army. So in 60, in fact, we had the first Kwanzaa program here. It was 65, 69. I mean, 69, 70 was the first one. So, I came out of the army in 68, and in 69 we had the first Kwanzaa program. And we decided to take 3 names, so forth and so on. So our family name, Salaam, is not because of the male's last name was Salaam, but because we chose that Salaam as a family name. I like that. That's what that is. And so
What does
Kalamu Ya Salaam, pen of peace. Kalamu is pen or pencil or writing utensil. Ya of Salaam, peace. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
In fact, the whole thing about names, when we're coming up, children would talk their names, and as I would go around doing things, one at a time, I was working with the Black Collegian magazine, and we had a guy, Hal Pluchet, I think his name was doing some of the layout for us, and went by his house to pick up some stuff. And my second daughter, Kiini Ibora, who is a writer, her book is over there. One of her books is over there. Anyway, she was with me, and I said, I'm acting like I got manners. So I said, Hal, this is Kiini Ibora, my daughter. This is Hal Pluchet. And Hal was having a little trouble. She said, Kiini Ibora. I said, okay. She said, Kiini Ibora. She said, the innermost part of something special, which is peace. What does your name mean?
a young child like
He said, brave lion, I don't know.
Make up something right quick.
How many children do you have?
5.
Oh, you got to name everybody. You name one of them.
Yeah, well, Asante, which is thank you. Asante Salam, I was talking to her earlier. Mtume Ya Salam, disciple of prophet of peace. Kiini Ibora, something special, innermost part, something special. Tutashinda, Inchi Na Salam, we will win land and peace. In fact, Tutai is, he was always interested in football. I never saw him play because I was off doing different things. Half the time I wouldn't even be in the city. And he served as a football umpire sometime in the SWAC division. He's up to get moved, bumped up to the NFL. And then Tiaji is tough. Little general, that's what I call her. She, She's something. She has worked for the State Department, traveled all over, literally all over the world. Doing work. She works for the Library of Congress now.
She work out of New Orleans?
No, she's in D.C.
She's in D.C.
She lives in Maryland, works in D.C. Her children are all over. Tiati's in D.C. Kiini is in New York. Tutashinda is in San Francisco. He's an engineer by profession. And Tume is in San Diego. And Asante is here in New Orleans. She don't
I mean, like the thing, before we close this thing out though.
What's next?
Anything you want to talk about your books?
What's next?
Anything you want to say anything about your writings? Or you want to promote anything that you got out there?
If people are interested, they can find Kalamu, Kalamu, Salaam, YASALAAM. I've got books on Amazon and what have you, so you can find me. I mean,
Just Google you.
just Google, like the young folks say, Google me.
But I'd like to also thank Dr. Joyce Jackson for arranging this meeting, this interview.
Yeah,
It gives
me
opportunity.
and George been knowing each other for a little while now. I ain't gonna say how long, because I ain't gonna embarrass her. Just a little while now.
Yeah, you say she definitely running at a young age. Now she also been in the background asking questions. Got a question?
What's next?
What's next?
The next project, the major project is Seeing Black, photography of New Orleans. And it has historic photograph, but it's got close to 70-some contemporary photographers who are either native to New Orleans or have moved to New Orleans or lived here for a while. I'll show you
So
some.
you finally getting something out on photography.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you started out at.
Woke up one morning and there it was, knocking on my cranium, said, do something.
Your training.
I said, okay, I'll do something on photography. Because I've done all the kind of literature stuff. Those books on that third shelf down, most of those are anthologies, and then in the middle is some of the books I've written. Yeah. So,
You're also doing a book on Jerome Big Duck Smith.
right. Big Duck. Yeah, well, we'll see how that comes out.
That's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Big Duck is
On the move.
he's a major figure in the civil rights movement, and of course he's associated with CORE. And I ended up, although I started off by involvement with the civil rights movement as a member of CORE, I ended up being NAACP Youth Council. And then left that. When I left that, civil rights, I was not interested in becoming part of the American system. And that's what civil rights movement was working for us. So I left that. That's a whole other story.
You got plenty there. We get that.
Well, yeah. See, Ernest Morial was the president of the adult chapter of the NAACP when I was in the NAACP before it became head. Of course, later on, I ended up leading a takeover of City Hall when he was the mayor. We won the outs with each other after that. I mean, I've known, but I knew Sybil, but you know.
You say you have to make enemies along the way to friends and enemies and foes, whatever.
I didn't necessarily view them as enemies, as we had differences, and we were militant in our differences, let's put it that way.
That's your military training.
Hence, some of our military training, but also the civil rights. See, what many people don't realize is the civil rights movement had to face down Babylon. you had these, the Jim Crow era was not just a time period, it was also laws, it was legalistic. That segregation was the law of the land. And those of us who were ardent members of the civil rights movement, we had to face down Babylon. We had to be against those laws of segregation and what have you. And to be against those laws meant that you were an outlaw, literally.
Because you're out of the law.
You were literally an outlaw, and you had to break down. And so you had to free your mind. I mean, people don't realize it today. It's hard to free your mind when you've been taught all your life to obey the law. You understand? That's what we've been taught to do. I remember, I'll tell you this joke, we'll end it with this one. Sonia Sanchez was born in the South, and coming out of Birmingham and what have you. So one day, she was in school, she had moved on up, I forget it was junior high, high school. But they told the students, stand up, and they did the Pledge of Allegiance, and to say, now we're going to sing the national anthem. Everybody started singing the Star Spangled Banner, and she started singing, lift that red voice.
That was hers.
That was, when you said the national anthem down south, that's what we thought, lift every voice and sing.
That's right.
You know, and so that's when she realized, she said, I see there's a whole different thing. And we don't realize that what we have been taught, for the most part, we have been taught to be white. That's
And not to be an American, it's to be what it is.
well, we've been taught that to be an American meant to be like white people.
But American to me, what I learned is a corporation.
Well, who runs the corporation?
That's where I'm getting to, yeah. That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, so that's, anyway, lift every voice. Sing.
Yeah. Brother, I'd like to thank you for taking your time out.
Oh, no problem.
And sitting here, and once again, my dear friend, Dr. Joyce Marie Jackson, who is the chair of LSU, Anthropology,
yeah.
Geography Department of LSU, Kalamu, Salaam.
Right.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Count Time and sharing your history, your story.
No problem, no problem. That's a small part of it. And there'll come a time when we share some other parts.
Appreciate you, man. Thank
All
you,
right.
brother.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.